Alright, so I played a game recently called Dispatch. This was something. Something pleasant, but not without numerous caveats. Anyway, it's good enough to recommend, that's for sure. What's it about? The life of a superhero is tough. The fighting, the time spent, and not anywhere near enough of appreciation. To say nothing about the scars or what happens to the day-to-day. The poor little dogs need walks after all, and being in a coma puts that in jeopardy. All that comes to a standstill once Mecha Man's suit gets destroyed. But a new opportunity comes along to participate in the life of a superhero from a different angle. Just so happens that he gets to order around a bunch of losers who are one step from going to prison. Can Robert and the Z-Team make it work, or does LA fall to ruin? As if that question doesn't have an obvious answer. What did I enjoy? I think deep down there's a lot of stuff here I simply don't connect with. So very much, but one thing I can freely praise over and over without any caveats is the visual aspect. How colorful, vibrant and imaginative the world is. Going through the art book made it so much more apparent as to just how much work goes into something as simple as a single character's outfit. How much trial and error happens before they land on something that truly works, and I've also enjoyed seeing the steps in between. How they've been throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And Lizzie Gal's outfit's probably been my favorite part of that. Aside from that, I did get a few laughs. The kind of laughs which catch me by surprise and I go pretty loud. The game is definitely not without charm and wit. Speaking of the characters, but that's a twofold point. They clearly are meant to be more than simple caricatures. I think it's the most apparent with Flambe. He's got the obvious villain backstory, history with the protagonist and a justified reason to hate him. But a lot of it, if not everything, is due to his own mistakes, and the moment he showed up to punch Robert in the face and give him a little monologue was wonderful. He's trying to do better, but he's still an apologetic piece of crap. And that somehow rolls him over into being likable at that point. And all of them have very lovable moments, well, except one of them, but about it later. Just want to lastly mention that Punch-Up was my favorite one. He's simply funny in everything he does. So what did I dislike? First of all, the actual gameplay. Meaning Dispatch is a couple of different games in a trench coat. First is obviously the story part, the actual meat of the game. That's done in a Telltale style, something akin to Walking Dead or The Wolf Among Us. But part is a tad more linear than I would like, due to playing a lot of choice of games. It's understandably more linear than that, those games are purely text, here it's a lot of art, voice acting and everything else that goes into choice and consequences. Amount of work that would take to do all that and still have impactful choices would scale astronomically if I were to choose every single response to fit myself better. But this brings me to the actual consequences, which did not feel great. I believe Telltale games suffer from the exact same problem, which means that the player is free to make choices, but the end result mirror each other completely, which is the most apparent with who, and this is minor spoilers but I don't care, it's the most apparent with who gets kicked from the team. I don't believe it feels good to play the game if this is the case. There need to be differences, otherwise it feels superficial. Not to say making choices is pointless, but it's like half a step away from that. It's almost pointless. And I want to take a full step, make a different scenario, make them go full vigilante of the team, make them imprisoned and get some other goon to be the leading man. I don't know, something different. Perfect mirrors are just lazy. Speaking of, the romance felt extremely forced. Invisible and Blazer both are obviously feeling a certain way, and that part is fine. I'm not a fan, but it's fine. My problem is what the response is to that, because to me it didn't feel like Robert was in the right headspace for any of it. Hell, maybe in the future with either of them, whatever, go nuts, but in like a day of meeting either of them, it's a full-on horny fest. By the way, no idea what time frame here is. At one point it's been one day, at another it's been weeks, when they suddenly mention it's been months. I have no idea how long in-universe the game actually takes place, which also makes the whole thing feel a lot more artificial and wholly unnatural. Anyway, I'd also like to mention that the villain sucked, the main one. He simply didn't have a backstory or any build-up. It needed a flashback or more hints to what he does behind the scenes. He just shows up and he's supposed to have some sort of precognition power or something, but I don't know anything about that. What does that have to do with anything? And suddenly his name is mentioned. Am I supposed to know it? It's like there was supposed to be another episode right there to elaborate more on the villain. But whatever. The design was cool, but story-wise he was pretty bad. It felt like devs ran out of time for the latter half of the game. Right, so that's the absolute most important part of the game, but there are two more. The actual dispatching and hacking. Hacking is a silly disappointment. It felt like busy work, more so than a puzzle or any kind of challenge. I'm not exactly sure how to do hacking well. To this day I've only enjoyed how Human Revolution does it, and maybe on a good day the stealth part of Shadowrun Hong Kong. Without a fighting at least. But even then, I have issues with both of those as well. Thankfully, hacking is a very minor part of dispatch. What is a fairly large part is the police work with dispatching. And you might be familiar with the game This Is the Police. It's a carbon copy of that, with a leveling component and a few more bits and pieces, like the stat challenges for instant failures if it's too high. I honestly believe what this minigame is horrendous. It's an inferior copy, and the original wasn't great either. The occasional little story tidbits and the comments from the team can be amusing, but it's very minor. While the management is just truly basic and just terrible. It's too basic, it's too simple, it's too pointless. I can't imagine ever looking at this in a positive light. Right, so lastly I'd bring up the minor writing complaints and the characters. So, Sonar sucked. The bad guy. I've hated his character, his voice and what he does. I think my biggest problem was the fact that he looks so damn cool, but is just kind of a mumbling loser. Also, for some reason, the hottest chick in the game likes him. I mean, come on, how can anyone not hate him for that alone? Unacceptable. Others also felt a bit inconsistent sometimes, like Golem flip-flopped from being chill to a piece of crap to a wreck. Waterboy was... Okay, Waterboy is another topic entirely. Look, I am as awkward as hell, and I feel like I can relate to him the most, but what is his problem? I just don't get who talks like that. It's... How do I explain it best? Waterboy is written in a way a confident extrovert would perceive him, which is not at all the same as what Waterboy actually is. The stutter, the casual bullying, the constant awkwardness around everyone, especially the sexy boss chick, that moment in the toilet, and especially, and that's the strongest part here, the fact what he is just spending his time during the day in a bucket in a dark closet. All that was completely believable and realistic. But what he says and the fact just how much he talked were completely off mark, and as a whole he just felt weird and inconsistent and not how I believe an awkward person actually is. By the way, aside from Flambe and Invisigal, most of the team did feel like set dressing. It's not a deal breaker for sure, but the story would have felt a lot stronger if they have had more impact, or some events in the day-to-day. Like 2 bumps into Golem is not enough to make him feel like a part of the team and an actual impactful character in the story. Punch Up was funny, but if you take him from the story entirely, what is lost exactly? You could put anyone else in the story instead of him and nothing would change. I can say the same for basically all of them. And I want to bring up the innuendos, dick jokes and so on and so forth. First episode alone had at least 4 dick jokes. It wasn't funny even once, and the way Invisigal talks, holy crap, I feel like I would just take my headset off or press mute on her like half the time. Also, the sheer amount of swearing, it makes me think of Vivzipop. It's not terrible, I enjoy her stuff, but... holy shit, what the fuck is up with all the fucking swearing? Bitch, please! Which actually reminds me of another thing I very much wanted to praise, but it's extremely minor. The way the story treats nudity and sexuality. I definitely enjoyed that because it's not played like anime or something like that. Like in anime where they get nosebleeds, turn violent or run around screaming. And in other media it's often focused on and the moment drags on for what feels like hours. Just nudity is usually treated in such an awkward and weird way. It's horrendous. But in Dispatch, Blazer's nipple was shown once. And she just goes, oh, let me adjust that. And moves on. That's it. Oh my god. I wish it always was like that. It's so extremely minor, but it's so rare to be casual about this stuff. I love it. Also, people check out each other's asses. Again, it's a little weird, but it's totally casual as we move on right away, and I do love that. But again, please, let's focus on dicks. Bloody hell, please no. So yeah, I pretty much went over this game in one night and a short afternoon. But there was a lot to say, which is definitely a sign of praise. But that doesn't make it perfect. Whatever the case may be, I am glad this patch is released and gaming as a whole benefited for sure.